But when he listened to the story of Bob, he understood that it was his friend waiting for him. Through their brief encounter, the two explore the themes of friendship, loyalty, and trust. O. Henry's short story, After 20 Years, it focuses on the reunion of two old friends, Jimmy and Bob. The cop, after listening to the stranger's story, tells him to leave early, and he leaves. Hello students, I am Anil, Assistant Professor of English, Vidhyaashram First Grade College, the Temple of Excellence, MYSURU. In this session, we are going to look at a prose part, After 20 Years by O. Henry for the students of BCom second semester. In this module, we are going to look at about the author and the summary of After 20 Years. About the author, O. Henry, his original name is William Sidney Porter and he is known by his pen name O. Henry. O. Henry is his pen name. He is an American short story writer. Most of his stories deal with day-to-day life of people who are undergoing a societal pressure and also something which is related to work and life balance. The Gift of Magi is one of his most famous works. This work is one of the most famous in his collection of writings. He has written many poems, short stories, non-fictions as well. This is about O. Henry and his original name is William Sidney Porter. What is the theme which is there in this story? O. Henry's short story, After 20 Years, it focuses on the reunion of two old friends, Jimmy and Bob. Through their brief encounter, the two explore the themes of friendship, loyalty, and trust. The story is a very short one, but still there is a strong bond between the friends, and we will see how it creates something which is very much interesting. The story is a very short one, but it has a strong message. It is between friendship, duty, and balancing both of them. Let us see how the story goes and what is there inside the story. The story begins with a cop moving on the street. The story is like this. There is a cop who is walking on the street. It was a cold night and he was doing his job. He was looking for the safety of the street. He was a very strong man and he looked very watchful. The cop saw a man standing at the door of a shop and slowed down. When he was doing his job, he finds a man who was standing in front of a shop. You can imagine most of the shops are shut after the working hours in the evening. It is a business place, a road, and this man was keeping watch of that street. So there he notices a man who was standing there in front of a shop. He inquires who he was waiting for. Then he goes to the man, and when he goes to the man suddenly realizes that he is a cop. Then he tells why he was standing there. The man briefs the cop about an agreement between him and his friend. The man also tells about him how he was successful. Now when the cop arrives to him, the man who was standing at the shop, he started telling his story, why he was waiting there, what was he doing there. So he tells that he was there before 20 years in the same city with a friend. So they both were friends in the New York City. This story takes place in New York. So this man was waiting for a friend of his. They had agreed 20 years ago that they would meet 20 years after that point of time. And they wanted to see what life has got for both of them. Actually, it was this man who suggested moving out of New York. But the other man said, there is no place better than New York. And he stayed back. The man also tells him about how he was successful. Then this man tells that he was very successful when he moved to the west of New York. This man was very rich and it is indicated by a jewel in his necktie. And sometimes he opened his wristwatch which was decorated with diamonds. With this, O. Henry gives a hint that this man was financially very successful. The cop, after listening to the stranger's story, tells him to leave early and he leaves. So this cop listens to the story and that man who was waiting for one of his friends, he says that they both were good friends They had spent their time in New York. Then they wanted to move west. He suggested this idea to his friend. But the friend denied this idea. But he moved on. He went to the west, and he also told the police that they used to write letters in the beginning of their departure. But after that, it stopped. But they had clarity in their mind that they would meet after 20 years. So after 20 years, this man was there at the same place where there was a restaurant, Joe Brady's restaurant, where they had their last meal together. Now this man was also standing there, waiting for his friend to come. It was around 10 p.m. in the New York City. Then the cop, after listening to the story, yes, he heard all the stories this man told, and he believed, okay, yes, the story is genuine. And he asked the man who was standing there, if your friend doesn't appear in the next 20 minutes or so, is that man going to go away? And that person said, no, I'm going to wait for my friend. So when this was said, the police had the clarity, yes, this man is telling the truth, and then he leaves. After 20 minutes, another person comes and recognizes that man as Bob. The story is of two friends, Bob and Jimmy. Bob and Jimmy. So after some time, after 20 minutes of waiting, a person comes to Bob. His name is Bob. A person comes to this man and introduces himself as Jimmy Wells. Bob recognizes the man as Jimmy Wells. They both walk along the street talking to each other. Once, when they reached a place where there was a street light, Bob looked at Jimmy and said he was not his friend. So when they met, the man introduced himself as Jimmy Wells. Bob agreed, yes, he is the friend. And they talked about their departure, their growing up in two different places. And they also exchanged warmth of friendship. Then they started to go out. The man who came there, he suggested that they should go to a restaurant and eat, just like how they did 20 years back. So they agreed. They started to walk on the street, but there were no lights. They could not recognize each other properly. But when they came near a street light, Bob suddenly looked at this man and said that a man can grow taller, but his nose doesn't grow too long. This man who had come, he was taller than Bob. But he recognizes that this man was not Jimmy Wells. Then he stops. The other man says Bob was under arrest from past 10 minutes. The man who had come in the disguise of Jimmy Wells, now he tells him that, Bob, you were under arrest for the past 10 minutes. So how is this happening? He hands over a message from Bob's friend, Mr. Wells. So he says, don't create nuisance here. There is a letter for you. If things go well, then we can quietly go. When this man gives a chit to this fellow, he opens it. He starts reading it. Then Bob reads it and his hands start shaking as he reads it. So what was there inside that? It was a letter from his friend, Jimmy Wells, the cop who was there previously. He was also waiting for his friend, just like they had agreed to meet after 20 long years. But what was written in the letter? He says, Bob, I was waiting for you at the agreed time. But when I looked at you, I did not see my friend. But what I saw was a man who was wanted by the Chicago police. They had already sent the image of that man, and they had instructed us to look for him and arrest if he is seen. So when I saw you, I did not see my friend. He had already forgotten the face of his friend, but the Chicago police had sent a photograph which exactly matched with that of his friend. So what did Jimmy Wells do? He did not want to arrest his friend on his own because he respected his friendship. So he said, okay, if your friend did not come, was he going to go away? The man said he would wait. So Jimmy Wells quietly left the place and sent his colleague to arrest his own friend. So finally, the story ends. So what is in this story that is very important for you to understand? This is a very simple story. Two friends departed, agreeing to achieve success in life. One stayed where he was, the other went the other way. They both walked their ways, but they chose two different paths. Jimmy Wells had become a cop in the New York City. But Bob, he had turned out to be a man who was wanted by the police department. He had become successful. He was rich. The author indicates his richness by a jewel in his tie and diamonds which decorated his watch, whereas Jimmy Wells was an honest cop. But they met at the designated or agreed time. But when they met, Bob also did not recognize Jimmy. But when Jimmy saw Bob, he recognized a man wanted by the Chicago police. But when he listened to the story of Bob, he understood that it was his friend waiting for him. And he could not tell that he was the cop who is going to arrest him. So he quietly listened to the story of Bob and understood that he was his friend. And now he cannot arrest him. Therefore, he takes a clever path. He wanted to respect his friendship as well, and also he could not cheat on his duty. So he goes to one of his colleagues. He tells him the entire story and sends him to go and arrest his own friend. So he balances both his friendship and his duty. That is important. In our lives also, we come across such instances where you have to choose either of the paths which is in front of you. It may be your education, your emotions, your profession, and things like that. But it is your duty to choose it very wisely and deal with the things properly. So that is the message which is there in this, a short story by O. Henry. O. Henry writes much stories like this which have an effect on the reader. With this thought of balancing both friendship and duty, Jimmy chose to arrest his friend, and also he did not cheat on his friendship or duty. This is the story of Jimmy and Bob by O. Henry after 20 years. Thank you.